He aha te hau e wawara, e wawara. He tiu he raki, he tiu he raki. Nāna ia mai te pūpūtara ki he kiota. E tiki nā atu e au te kōtiu ko i te pauwhakairo ka tū ki te wai te mata. I oku wairangitanga e. Ati he wā mauri ora. E aku nui, e aku rahi. Koutou ngau raukura ahurei. Ko tai ki tērā taumata nui. Nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai. Nau mai ki tēnei pō, whakahirahira. Ki tēnei kaupapa, hui a kai manawa. Ki te whakanui e nei raukura hou. Mea o rātou pūkinga, o rātou kaunga, i tukuna ki te ao. Hara mai i rungi te karanga o waipapa Taumata rau. Whakatau mai i rungi te karanga hoki me te manakitanga o Ngāti Whātua o Rākei. I roti tēnei pokapū o Tāmaki Makaurau nei, i raro i te tirohanga o ngā maunga whakahi, e karanga atu nei kia tātou whakatau mai rā. He tātai whetū ki te rangi, mautonu, mautonu. He tātai tangata ki te whenua, ngaro noa, ngarongoa. E ngā mate katoa, haere, haere, haere atu rā. Rātou kia rātou, e noho i wainga nui ngā mātua tupuna, e moe. Tātou kia tātou ki tēnei ao tūroa, tātou e hui hui mai nei ki te tautoko tēnei kaupapa, a tēnā koutou katoa. Ka tū au ki te whārikihia, te korowai manaki, ki te tiroho, ki ngā kaiwhiwhi nōmua, me ngā whānau, me ngā hoa ki tēnei pō. E tika ana te kōrero no ngā mātua tupuna. He whetū ko tahi noa. Engari, i tēnei pō, toko rima o rātou e pi ata ana. Nā reira, tēnā koutou, a tēnā tātou katoa. Ka huri ahau ki tō tātou rangatira, tō tātou ihorangi ko Dawn Freshwater, ki te tuku ngāmihi kia tātou katoa. Tut!
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Auckland, Professor Dawn Freshwater.
Kia ora tātou, nau mai, haere mai. Ko Dawn Freshwater takuinga i o rangi o Waipapa Taumata rau. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the hashtag 2025 Distinguished Alumni Awards event. My name's Dawn Freshwater. I'm the Vice-Chancellor of our fine institution, and it's a wonderful pleasure to welcome you all here this evening. I would like to just start by acknowledging all of our previous Distinguished Alumni Award winners in the audience this evening. We now are surpassing 140, which is befitting given that we are 140 years old, just over. So welcome to you all. Also to acknowledge our 40 under 40 award winners, our Coupe scholars, and we have our Chancellor here, previous Chancellor, and some council members. I'm not sure what the collective noun is for directors and council members from the past, so I'm just going to call them a frenzy of council members. You're all very welcome too. It's great also to have staff and students with us. Now, if you were paying attention, you would have heard that I came onto the stage to David Bowie's Starman. And of course, I am Lieutenant Uhura this evening, as you can see. For the Trekkies amongst you, we have a theme tonight around space, and particularly around reaching for the stars. This is quite a purposeful theme for this annual event. Reaching for the Stars, of course, speaks to our distinguished alumni of the evening, and we're going to hear about their attempts in reaching for the stars and how they've succeeded. But I want to pause for a moment and just ask you to reflect on what it takes to reach for the stars. Optimism, hope, faith, trust, dreams. And I want to go back to optimism. You may not think that there's an abundance of optimism around at the moment, and that there is a dearth of hope. But actually, every day at the University of Auckland on our campus, there are nearly 50,000 reasons to be hopeful and causes for optimism. And those students and staff and our community that bring hope, optimism, good faith, trust in the future to our campus are one of the reasons why we're all here this evening. I'd like to encourage you to take a moment this evening to reflect on the importance of optimism and on the importance of hope and good faith. All of this requires moral courage, something that we all need to inhabit in our current times. And that moral courage will drive the dreams. It will drive the dreams not only of our new students recently arrived, but our returning students, our alumni, our donors, our community. And it will, of course, bring that hope for our own country and more broadly for the globe. Enjoy this evening. Listen to the cause for optimism from our distinguished alumni winners this evening. And I hope that you go away feeling hopeful at the end of the evening. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Our host for this evening, journalist and broadcaster Jack Tame.
E mihi ana ki te rangi, e mihi ana ki te whenua, e mihi ana ki ngā tūpuna i te pō, e mihi ana ki ngā uri i te awātea, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ore te iwi, ko haere mai ki tēnei hui, ki tēnei whakanui, ki a Taumata i te tau 2025. Ki te haukainga o te wahi nei, nā te whātua ōrākei, tēnā koutou katoa, ki a Michael, i te rangatira, tēnā koe i te whakatau tino mahana i te pōnei. Ki au he matahiopo i tēnei kaupapa. Nā reira, ko tēnei te whakamoimiti mō ngā kaiwhakarite o te hui, ki ngā kaimahi o te waipapa taumata rau. Ki ngā tauira kua tai mai, ka whiwhi ngā tohu, ka whakahoki aku pātai, kia kaha koutou, haere, haere, haere. Nā reira, kia tātou, kia pai te whakanui nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Frankly, it's getting embarrassing. For 3 years now, I have had the great privilege of hosting this event for Waipapa Taumata Rau, the University of Auckland. For 3 years now, I have seen that email pop up in my inbox. I should know better. In the spirit of this wonderful, learned institution, I should, learn. And yet, for 3 years now, I've felt a little flutter in my chest. Invitation to the Distinguished Alumni Awards. Distinguished? Who? Me? I think. I know they've let me down in the past. I know that I've been brought back down to earth with a thud, but somehow, despite the last couple of years, I still can't suppress that little kernel of hope and wonder. Maybe, I think, who knows? Perhaps this year's the year. Maybe they're getting a bit thin on the ground. Times are tough. Maybe they're going to quietly phase out the word distinguished. And then I read the recipient list. Alas, for my sake, there is a reason we call this Taumata. Taumata means summit. It means the apex. It means a high point. It's a point upon which most of us, from down below, can merely gaze up to. And it is such an apt name for what is such a special occasion. Very quickly, I started with a mihi this evening, and I just want to very quickly translate what I said. I gave thanks to the earth, thanks to the sky, thanks to our ancestors in the spirit realm. I acknowledged mana whenua of this place, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. I acknowledged the organisers of this celebration, and I acknowledged those 5 extraordinary recipients who are going to be with us on stage this evening. I also said, good luck with my questions, but they should be fine. They should be fine. It's funny though, the University of Auckland just provides for such an extraordinary range and diversity of higher educational pursuits. It's the kind of intermediary, right? It's the gateway to an extraordinary diversity of careers, a diversity of lives. And yet, despite their very different professional pursuits, their very different careers, I figured there are 3 things that our recipients tonight have in common. So, number 1, all of them are keen observers of the world. Sure, they all come from very different fields and sectors, but all of them, whether consciously or otherwise, have taken that insight and sought to improve the world for their respective communities. Number 2, all of them have excelled through drive, through leadership, through graft. They have each made their way to their own personal taumata. And number 3, all of them were educated at Waipapa Taumatarau, the University of Auckland. So tonight is a celebration of our recipients' vision. It's a celebration of creativity. It's a celebration of application, of dedication. But above all, it is a celebration of the lives and the achievements that education can unlock. Ko tētahi whakatauki, ko te manu, e kai ana i te miro, nō nā te ngāhere. Engari, ko te manu e kai ana i te mātauranga, nō nā te ao. That means the bird that consumes the miro berry possesses the forest, but the bird that consumes knowledge possesses the world. So, without further ado, please check that your phone is on silent, and let's meet our first recipient.
She was very independent in lots of ways, even when she was quite small.
My memory of her was being deeply interested in absolutely everything, and when I knew her at school, she could be easily led astray as well.
We used to go camping a lot together as the family, and we loved that. We didn't push the idea of careers hugely. We went with the flow in their education and what they wanted to do.
She was deeply passionate that the world could be a better place. It's pretty amazing. She's CEO of Becca. If you asked me 20 years ago, would she be there, I'd actually say yes.
She absolutely understands the subject that we do and the services we deliver. She has an embedded sense of community and whānau. Very passionate person around things like sustainability.
I think that she has retained that understanding that she is part of something much bigger than herself.
You can appoint a person to a leadership position, but it's actually the people within your company that choose whether to follow. And in Amelia's case, she's just a natural leader. She's someone that people look up to. They understand her vision.
She's the smartest person I know. She's not just book smart, she's people smart.
She's just a lot of fun.
She has 3 lovely children. She has a husband who is deeply committed to her and her career, and she has a number of long-standing friends that she's incredibly close to. She always makes us do terrible projects. So she would have us on the farm doing hard labour. She would have us pick 30 different species of plums because she's just checking which one might work in this spot.
Look, I'm an Amelia fan. I literally can't see how Amelia gets done in 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. What Amelia gets done.
Distinguished alumna Amelia Lindsay. She will receive her medallion from her daughter Heather Smith, who's in her first year studying for her Masters of Science in Geography, so following in her mother's academic footsteps. Heather is a long-time volunteer with Orange Sky, a charity supporting homeless people.
I'm sure you'll forgive me, but backstage, where the lights are dimmed, I bumped into your daughter and I said, "Good luck." Do you just want to explain how that happened? Because that wasn't by design.
No, look, I think Mum made a comment there, and hopefully we've followed in those footsteps of giving people the choice and the career opportunities or the development opportunities that they want to take. And I think Heather started with an aspiration of med school, which I have to admit I did try and talk her out of a little bit, just because I sort of think, the opportunity of university is to find the things that you're passionate about. And I think the advantage of a science degree and the advantage of that sort of experience is that you get to see different ways of thinking and then apply that knowledge to the things that you're really passionate about. And anyway, a year in, we start moving towards the geography disciplines. And I don't know, it'd be interesting, of course now she does, but I'm not sure that she would have known what my master's was in. I've worked in an engineering firm for a quarter of a century, so it's not like that the geography title gets rolled out every day. So I think it's a fascinating way that we've ended up so closely aligned in the academic history here.
Becca specialises in professional services, project management and infrastructure development. And don't take this the wrong way, but a lot of people are going to hear those words and go,
yes.
What? Sorry? But it occurs to me that your job is to manage and shape change. So give me the Amelia Lindsay ethos on change.
Well, so I think it is, you're absolutely right. What we do in communities and for clients is help drive the vision that people have for the future of what we need to aspire to make the world better, to make the communities that we live in better. And I think that's the thing that I've always been passionate about, infrastructure. You're right, it is, when it's at its best, the most invisible thing. But it's also the thing that makes places tick, that makes and gives communities the tools, the base, I suppose, to deliver the aspirations that they have. And I think for me, very passionate about sustainability, very passionate about world views and different cultural perspectives on how we tackle those problems. And I think the thing that's always excited me about those challenges is it is about how we're going to look at things differently, how we're going to map out what a solution might look like that's different, and then driving to put that in the ground. And to me, that's what change is about. It's about having that aspiration and vision and a bit of courage, and then mapping your way towards it, whether that's through an infrastructure project, whether that's through land use and policy change with development and housing in Auckland, or whether that's through, now for me, looking at the future of Becca as a business and where we're going.
You've been connected personally with some massive projects that I think everyone will recognise. I wondered if you could just talk us through your experience walking through the Waterview connection for the first time, because you had worked on that for a
decade of my life, and one that my family will testify to not being the easiest project at times. So it's a project that got designed 3 times. It's many of the challenges that we face on how we design projects, how we deliver them in communities. But for me, the real pride, the real moment of pride, it was fabulous walking through that project and seeing it. But there were 2 moments that I would highlight. One was a community group member that we had worked with for many, many years, sometimes in collaboration, sometimes in dealing with the change that they could see coming and helping and working with the tension of going through that. And when we turned up to the opening walkthrough, it was like, well, we're all on the same team now because this is great. So that was a very heartfelt moment for me because they're not easy projects for communities to live with. And the second one for me was when I took the chair of the Board of Inquiry, so Judge Newhook came through with me, took the commissioners to show the project, and he said to me, this project looks like the plans that you took to the hearing. And I know that, again, it's just the ability to make that concept, make that vision, talk people through it and show them that change and then see that physical change in the environment, see that physical project on the ground.
So basically,
huge moment.
You delivered what was on the pamphlet.
Yeah, exactly. and I know that sounds, logical in some ways, but it's also a huge sense of pride that you can talk about a project and it delivers the things that you said that you were going to deliver with it. So
your family were campers?
Yes, as trampers, campers, camper vanners. We had a yellow camper van that my parents would drive us around for big hikes, occasionally get mistaken for a hamburger joint. So yeah.
So how does that the kind of interaction with the environment at a young age, how does that shape your ethos today?
Look, I think I have always been really passionate about the natural environment that we live in, but also the importance of humans in that environment and how we look at the world and how that shapes what we're doing. So I think, yes, many times tramping around New Zealand and camping around New Zealand and often moaning about it are things that are really dear to my heart. Now I've done it to my kids. We went around the South Island. You had to walk quite fast because you could hear them at the back behind us. Well, why are we doing this? and then, Heather stands up today and is following those footsteps. So I think it does give you a really valuable grounding on the value of the natural environment, the place, and the contribution it can make to your soul.
You have been at Becca for a few years now. You've had a whole range of different roles during that time, which I suppose has meant that you have always been learning about different roles. And I wondered, how has continuing to learn impacted you as Becca's leader now?
Yeah. Look, I think I wasn't the best high school student. I think the university really was something that shaped me because of the choices that you could make. I've always been a highly curious person. I've always really relished learning. I come from a family of learners. My sisters are both in academia or teaching. My parents the same. My grandparents the same. My aunts and uncles the same. So I'm sort of the black sheep in the corporate world. But I think it's been a really I've always been focused on how can you explore different people's ways of seeing the world, and whether that's my team and how we can bring projects together, giving an opportunity, I suppose, to explore some of those differences and how people look at a problem, what they're looking to solve, and how you can work together to make that a better problem. I think that's part of it. I think also putting your hand up and being excited about doing lots of different things, and I think that's something that I've really relished as an opportunity from my working career, and want to relish now in making sure that we are providing a business that continues to do that for people.
I'm not sure if this is the technical term, but in the infrastructure and engineering sector, it occurs to me there are a lot of dudes on the dance floor.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but do you reflect on women leaders in your life and about what your appointment to this role means for other women in your sector?
Yeah. So yes and no. I mean, actually, infrastructure, I reflect occasionally. So this role has been a huge and exciting opportunity to reflect, because you do see different environments. And so I went to I've been to other areas of our industry that Becca works in now, and infrastructure is cutting edge, and it's still quite blokey. And so I think I've never really felt the responsibility of being a woman leader more than this role and the one before when you're leading people. And I think that's what's made me really reflect on that, how you can be a minority in the room and how that can be both a huge opportunity for people to see and follow, and also a huge responsibility for me to make sure that we're making those opportunities. So I think it's, I would say I'm a late arriver at being aware of how significant and what part you can play in making that come to life. But I certainly feel it now. I think it's a huge responsibility for not just the infrastructure industry, but actually a number of other industries that we work in through Becca.
Yeah. New Zealand has a vast infrastructure shortfall, as I'm sure you're well aware, $200 billion by some counts. Climate change is forecast to significantly change the shape of our communities, but you spoke just a couple of minutes ago about some cultural differences that you have observed when it comes to infrastructure development and the changing nature of our communities. So finally, how should we think about the kind of country we want to build for the next 50 or 100 years?
So I'd be really passionate about, for me it's about, and I go back to the vision comment at the beginning, having a shape of what we want our country to be, recognising the things that we have that are so special here. I think for me personally, that cultural perspective comes from the gift that we have in New Zealand of the Indigenous biculturalism that we have here, and the perspective that can bring to how we can solve problems in a different way. And I think that's a huge competitive advantage, she says as a business person, a huge competitive advantage of who we are in the world. We have massive problems in front of us for infrastructure, not just the deficit point, but the climate change point of how do we build an adaptable and resilient community. And I think bringing those sort of knowledge systems, those sort of perspectives into the room are going to be the things that we need to do to find different ways to solve them. So I think that's the thing that's really exciting, and I think it's really exciting for New Zealand and as a New Zealand business to think about what that looks like on the international stage, because it does mean that we have some different ways of seeing the world that I think are going to be needed for things like sustainability, because some of the things we've done in the past we cannot keep doing in the future because they haven't solved the problems that we're facing.
Yeah. Kia ora. On that note, please join me in congratulating Amelia Lindsay. Well done.
Kia ora. Thank you. All right.
And it's time to meet our next recipient.
Stephen is the eldest of 5 children. He lived 200 metres up the road from where we lived, and it was very normal for us and other children from the same street to get together and walk up to school. We thought that was the whole world in Manurewa where we grew up. It was a very cohesive community. Everybody was wanting their families to do well. His granddad was very involved with the fallout of the Dawn raids. So Stephen had all these elements coming together through his family and through his schooling that were just a perfect fit for the man that he became.
Sawaleo or Stephen Stalin is a Pacific Island leader. He's a very kind man. He's a very generous person. He was one of the pioneers to very much promote our Pacific Island stories.
Stephen always wanted to do things to the best of his ability. Being the producer of Tangata Pacifica really mattered to him, and he looked for stories that were not generally out there to be seen.
The power and the stretch of that show is more than most people realise. To see people that look like you and talk like you on screen is an incredibly empowering thing.
He's been a long-standing leader in broadcasting and arts, and as well as an advocate for our LGBT Pacific community. Because he is Pacific Islander Samoan himself, I think there's that sense of justice, that Pacific people are treated fairly here in Aotearoa and given those fair opportunities to succeed.
He is the most wonderful human being. The opportunities that he gave to aspiring young journalists, camera people, technicians, artists, in my view, will be his greatest legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome distinguished alumnus Stephen Stalin. His medallion is presented by Fine Koloa Mātangi. Fine recently submitted her PhD in art history focusing on Pacific communities' interest in K-pop. She is also a tutor in the Faculty of Arts and Education.
Taua le o Stephen Stalin.
Yes.
Malo
Jack
lama.
Tame.
O ame oe?
Manui whaftai. Yaoi.
Manu wea whawhitai.
Wow, well done. Just about the same level.
Stephen Stalin, storyteller. What do you love about stories?
Well, I could bore you to tears, but you know, you get transported to another world. You know, it's like everybody's experience. And I was always engaged with my father's stories and my grandfather in particular, because he would tell stories of Samoa, this mysterious place called Samoa. So it was that was the genesis of that. But of course, it was here that not here in this theatre, but at Auckland University that I got caught up in theatre workshop and the Kenneth Maitland Theatre and some of Shakespeare's and all that. That was magic.
Why did you study French?
I know it's crazy, isn't it? Why would I do that? Well, in fact, he's in the audience somewhere, Jean-Paul Théron. At 1973, wasn't it, Jean-Paul? So this was when New Zealand took France to the International Court in The Hague for the atmospheric testing. So everything broke down. All the diplomatic relationships broke down. And I went to a Catholic school, and in our French class, our Australian Christian brother read out in his kind of Australian French this letter from a guy wanting a family to stay with. So I went home to my mum. I said, "Mum, there's a Tahitian guy looking for a family to stay with." And Anne-Marie and Chris, they're here tonight, will know that and my husband, James, will know that Jean-Paul has been a part of my life. And so it sparked an interest. And it's also something I could do. You know, I was terrible at maths.
In one of your first jobs, working in television,
Yes.
you were filming Māori Battalion, March to Victory.
Oh, yes, yes.
So you took 5 soldiers, you
Yep.
visited Italy, Crete, North Africa. And the reason I mention you're studying French is because it's funny where education will lead you. You were arrested whilst...
How did you know this story?
You were arrested while in Tunisia, and in Tunisia, of course, it's
How did
very
you
handy
know
if you
that?
can speak
How
French.
did you know that? Damn it. So, no, what happened? I wasn't arrested. But we spent months, Tainui and I spent months pleading with the families of these old soldiers. They were all in their 70s and 80s. This was in the 1980s when you were born. And what happened was we were going to, it's hard to film in these places and it's impossible to film in them now. But we had a connection with with the Tunisian military. And so because I could speak French, I was going to be the interpreter. But he didn't arrive. So I'm waiting for the guy, and then Tainui takes off with the old guys and starts filming by himself. And then ring, ring. Are you Mr. Stalen? Yes, that's me. And then I took the phone. It's the police here. Are you in charge of this Maori battalion march to victory? This is all in my bad French. And I said, yes. And they said, you don't have a permit. I said, no, we do. We do. We absolutely have a permit. But the guy had not arrived. It ended up being that all the crew were in a prison cell.
That's pretty close to being arrested, I think, Stephen, if we're... I mean, you can get technical on it, but...
Yeah, but I had to say I had to tell we had to promise the families that we would bring these old guys back alive. And and often, Tainui, if you're watching, you'll remember that we would have, bed rest day, because they thought these old guys had got together. They'd been together in the war. They thought they were 20 again. They were smoking and drinking. And so we would go through and inspect their rooms to find whether they had their cigarettes and their booze and take it off them. We were in our 30s, and these guys were in their 70s and 80s. Yeah. So where did you get that story
There's
from?
a golden age of television, I think you'll agree, Stephen.
Yes.
Yeah. So a couple of years later, you joined Tangata Pacifica.
Yes.
And Tangata Pacifica is an absolute bona fide institution in New Zealand TV.
Yes.
But I wondered if you could distill from your perspective what that program has meant for Pacifica communities in New Zealand.
Well, I think it's the novelty of recognition. And to tell you how they valued it was my constant arguments with commissioners, and that they will remain nameless, but someone would say, oh, you've got a show at the end of the schedule that nobody watches. And I went, no, actually they do, and they care about it. And I'm not sure where I'm going with this. What did you ask me?
What does it mean for Pacifica communities?
Well, in the beginning, it meant they saw themselves. And to give you, and they valued it. And to give you some examples of how they valued it, if there was some story involving some community, they would not want to talk, they would talk to One News, but they wouldn't talk to us, because they knew that all the Pacific people would be watching TP. But nobody would be watching One News. No, not that I have anything against One News. No.
We're all on the same team here, Stephen.
I know. Things have changed. Things have changed. But I guess it was the novelty of recognition, and it wasn't the actual first. We've got to tip our hats to to people like Mona Papali'i, who did a show called See Here. So the intent of that show was a studio show. They filmed it all on one afternoon, on a Friday afternoon, 5 minutes before midday, and it was to help people integrate into New Zealand society. But this show was more telling our stories, and often, as our communities do, like our performances and our arts, they do it for themselves. They don't really have you in mind. But when you are recognized, and that really hit me when I went to Christchurch once with Susana Hukui, who was the first presenter, and, the Pānangis didn't take any notice, but as soon as there was a Pacific person, Susana, they recognized them and they felt part of it. And another way of looking at it is that they never thought that it was a TVNZ show. They thought it was kind of stood on its own in the universe just by itself. So we were lucky because we were a regular and not the first, but the second, I would say.
Legacies take time, and Tangata Pacifica has been on air for a long time now.
Well, it was 38 years yesterday.
Who's counting, though, eh?
4th of April, 1987.
It occurs to me, though, that TV has changed since the good old days when you were knocking around North Africa with the old Māori battalion.
How lucky was I?
There are so many different vehicles for storytelling today. So what gives you optimism about young Pacific artists and storytellers in 2025?
Because they're fully embracing the new technology. that I have difficulty with. And they've always done it with music. They've always stood out on the sports field. Fine just gave me this lovely award, and the Tongan community has the highest rate of PhDs per capita.
Oh,
Yeah,
cut by Tonga, yeah.
who would know that? Yeah. The Samoans too, not far behind. So we're,
It's always the Samoa-Tonga playoff, isn't there?
yeah, well, yeah. The other thing about my experience of going to Tahiti was that it opened Pacific a bit more. So it was part of the French-speaking part, which is a good third of the South Pacific, was a real eye-opener for me. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations on what is an extraordinary legacy, 38 years and 1 day old, 2 days
Yeah,
old.
one day, yeah.
Please join me in congratulating Taua Leo Stephen Stalen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let's meet our next recipient.
When I met Craig, he was young, he was energetic. From day one, he's always had huge ambition.
He's incredibly driven. He can push himself to the absolute limit. He really cares about people, he cares about good friendships. He's wickedly smart and a bit of a prankster.
Craig really lights up the room. Whenever he enters, there's just a bunch more energy in the room, really good at talking to people and kind of drawing a conversation and a group together.
In our final year of uni, Craig came to me with this idea. Like all good engineers, we started by building something. Very first prototype of a halter collar.
He came in with, I think it was a Barker's belt with a bunch of circuit boards that were strapped to it. The early days were very much a grind. Nothing worked. We didn't even have an app.
We finished up our last bit of the university and Craig and I got in a ute and we started just driving into people's farms. What do you boys want? You're like, oh well, we're making this collar. It's gonna herd your cows for you, whatever our sales pitch was.
We've now got hundreds of farmers around the world using technology that he's ultimately created, and it's making a difference for a lot of different people.
I don't think Halter could be where it is today without his optimism and his persistence.
When I think about Craig as a leader, he's always one to lead with action, and he'll be right at the centre of the chaos and absolutely loving it.
He has this ability to switch on and just work harder than anybody else would work on a problem.
Maybe he wasn't the perfect mould of what an engineering student should look like, but now he has achieved a huge amount.
He's the guy that has the crazy ideas, but is also crazy enough to go make them happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Young Alumnus Craig Piggott. Presenting the medallion is Akshima Mava, studying mechatronics engineering and heavily involved in the Faculty of Engineering's Mechanical and Mechatronics Student Association.
Gumboots, they are wonderful, gumboots, they are swell, 'cause they keep out the water and they keep in the smell. And when you're sitting round at home, you can always tell when one of the Trevs has taken off his gumboots. If it weren't for your gumboots, where would you be? You'd be in the hospital or infirmary, 'cause you would have a dose of the flu or even pleurisy if you didn't have your feet in your gumboots.
They did you a doozy with the song. So why weren't you the perfect model of an engineering student?
Oh, there's probably a little bit to that story, but safe to say, I didn't go to like a lot of class.
The VC's here, Craig.
No, in my fourth year of engineering, I was working at Rocket Lab. I'd started Halter. There was like a lot going on. There wasn't a lot of sleep being had, so class kind of dropped off. But I still finished my degree. But yeah, it was just lower down on the priorities at that point.
You were applying your learnings. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Can you give us the townie explanation? What is Halter? What does Halter do?
So we're effectively a tech company. we have hardware and software. The hardware is a collar, it goes on a cow, as in that video. And then the farmer uses an app to effectively run their farm through Halter. The collar does some like relatively simple stuff like, say, a Fitbit or an Apple Watch would, which you would expect, but the kind of niche or the breakthrough with the collar is that we're able to train animals to listen to sound cues, so we can actually shift these cows around a farm, so we can fence and shift, which means you automate a bunch of work on a farm, and you can run these farms more precisely than you have in the past. So yeah, that's the core of the platform. The platform's kind of built over time. But for farmers, you save time. It's a more efficient, more sustainable, and more productive system. So
It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you can go and see videos of Halter at work. Basically, you have made fences redundant, right? Like you can move beasts between different pastures 12 times a day if you want. You can send all of your cows a signal so they know when it's time to come in and be milked. It's extraordinary. So how does one know that you can train a cow?
What, yeah. I get asked that a lot. The truth is, like, at the start of Halter, we didn't know. And I remember thinking, like, well, that's the only risky part of Halter. Like, you know, everybody builds apps and there's hardware everywhere, so all the rest of it will be easy. Which was very wrong, but obviously. So no, we didn't know. It took us about a year to figure that out. Max, who was in that video, and I spent, the good part of a whole year just like working on that to see if a cow could listen and understand a collar. Growing up on a farm, it's like intuitively you think that's the case. These animals learn sounds all the time, like they know the sound of a gate opening or a fence being wound up for fresh feed has like a ratchet on it, and if you leave the ratchet on, that's like, you know, there's a invasion of cows just like across the fence. So like there's all these kind of cues, you know, and so I guess the hunch was like, okay, well, can we do that with software on a collar?
Yeah, there have been some kind of pivotal moments. I wondered if you could tell us the story of going to San Francisco on one of your early trips to the US. I think you're seeking a bit of funding early on, and you had a kind of Dragon's Den moment.
Yep. Yeah, so we never had the option to like bootstrap Halter. I was a student, so I had no money. And we have a hardware product, which is obviously very expensive to make, or to develop and set up factories and stuff. So we had to raise money. We raised a little bit of capital here in New Zealand. I think it was like $300K, and which felt like all the money in the world at the time. And you buy a few t-shirts and hire a couple people, and there's none left. So we were like, okay, we need to raise proper money, and we went to the States. And so startups, you're always trying to focus on the riskiest part, which, like, the theory, you know, the training the cow bit was the riskiest part. And so we're like, well, how do we prove that we can do that? Well, we'll do that with a live demo. And Peter Beck, the founder and CEO of Rocket Lab, was on our board, and he used to be my boss, and he was like, it has to be a live demo. Like, you can't do a video. Like, how boring is a video? Like, it's a live demo. Like, you ask...
What could go wrong?
Yeah. And you ask the investor, like, pick a cow and pick a corner, and the cow walks to the corner, and we were like, sweet. And so that's, it's effectively what we did. It took us a while to make it work, but then hopped on a plane, and the demo worked. We were there for 2 weeks, and we left with, I think it was like $8.5 million raised off the back of that. So.
Yeah. And of course, there is a time difference with the US, which meant you actually had to put floodlights up for the paddocks, which I can imagine added another kind of dimension of stress. But
yeah, that's a reflection of my upbringing, where like my parents didn't really believe in travel, and so I got the time differences wrong, and so it was like 3 a.m. here in New Zealand, dark, and we were trying to there were cameras, and so people were running out like the night before buying big floodlights. We had like floodlit the farm. It was, the neighbours were complaining that the floodlights were...
You mentioned Peter Beck.
Yep.
Talk to us about your relationship with him. How did you meet him?
So I met him actually at a University of Auckland Velocity event. He was the speaker, and I, as an engineer, wanted a job at Rocket Lab. So it's like, sweet, I would go along, and there was free pizza and beer. And so I thought the worst case is free dinner, and best case is I get a job. And that's kind of what happened. I hassled him at the end of the event, and then got a job at Rocket Lab. And that was about 10 years ago. So I worked at Rocket Lab for a year. I went to Rocket Lab because I thought it was this insanely cool engineering project, and it was. But the thing, I'd never heard of like startups before this, or anything to do with VCs, and that was this like the window into this world of startups that I thought, holy shit, this is really cool. And so after a year at Rocket Lab, I was confused that no one was doing that for farming or agriculture, and so I left Rocket Lab to start Halter, pretty much saying to Pete, like, I just want to do this, but for farms. And I thought it was going to be way easier than it was. But yeah.
What's your vision? How far do you think Halter can go?
So agriculture covers half the world's landmass, or habitable landmass, and the whole industry hasn't been digitized for various reasons. And so I think our goal is to be like the operating system for agriculture. We started with dairy farms in the Waikato, and we've been expanding internationally and across into kind of all pasture-based farms, and we'll keep going from there. So if it's agricultural farming, we want to run it through Halter. There's a lot of opportunity to be more efficient, to be more productive and more sustainable. So once you can get that world into like the digital world, a lot of the products you build aren't revolutionary. They're things you would expect. It's just they weren't available to farmers because farming's been so manual. And so that's the long-term vision.
To be clear then, can other animals be trained?
We have, yes, that's it's definitely possible. There's a lot of cows, so we're starting with them. But there's literally billions of cows, but it can work on really any animal. We haven't tried like sheep and stuff. We get asked about that a lot, but
yeah. I know one of the challenges for young people who are ambitious, come from engineering backgrounds, going into the startup world, are the other dynamics that kind of make or break a business, whether it's marketing, whether it's legal stuff, whether it's HR. How have you found learning on the job all of that vital stuff?
Yeah, well, the first few years at Halter, I was like, sales is probably easy, marketing's easy, because we were just trying to build the product. And I think you never get too, I don't know if this is good advice for everybody, but it works for me. I just try not to look too far ahead. Just focus on all the things that are on fire right in front of you. Put them out first, and the other stuff, it's too daunting otherwise. When we were trying to train a cow, the collars they would last 2 hours. They weren't waterproof. The range on them was 100 meters. They cost thousands of dollars to make each. It took us, the first farm we did, took us 3 months with a team of 3 people there every single day. It cost us $100,000 to set up. The farmer's paying us I think $10,000 a year or something. We were never going to pay it off. We were losing money every month. It was kind of someone we broadly knew. There's just lots of things. You just have to focus on the thing in front of you. So, and then you just wake up every morning and move the ball forward.
Deal with the fire in front of you. You could maybe have a side business selling fridge magnets with that. I mean, New Zealand prides itself on innovation, right? A history of innovation, whether on the farm or whether in the Hauraki Golf, in an AC50 or in a Hamilton jet. What do you think we can do to better foster that culture of innovation in the 21st century?
Speaking from I don't know if I have the perfect answer to that, but speaking from my experience, the single most important thing for me was seeing it. So was my time at Rocket Lab and having Pete there. And so I guess I think out of Rocket Lab now there's probably been a dozen Halters or startups. Out of Halter there's probably been another 6 or so. So I think people experiencing it, seeing it, having these role models around and it being kind of culturally accepted is just the most important thing. I don't know how you do that per se. I'm always personally very excited if someone from Halter comes to me and says I want to start this business. I'm like, God damn it, but epic, And I've personally invested in a bunch of them, so definitely very supportive of that. And because I remember when I picked up the phone to Pete, and I don't know if we have time for a quick story, but I was working technically, I think, 4 days a week at Rocket Lab, or 3 days, and Pete wanted me to do 5, and I was I'm at uni, but I wasn't really going to uni. I was working at Halter.
He was.
And so, And so I had to ring Pete and be like, okay, I've been doing this thing on the side called Halter, and then I was fully expecting him to be like, hey, well, sounds like you're a bit busy. I'm pretty busy, so don't worry about coming back. And he like cleared his calendar. He was like so excited. He gave us like, he was like, I want to be on the board. I want to put cash in. This is when Rocket Lab was like 50 people. We hadn't even launched a rocket. So it was like the fact that he was so supportive of that was so instrumental to the start of Halter. And I think we just have to keep like rolling that forward to every other person that wants to start a business and give it a crack. And a lot of them won't work. That's startups, right? And some of them will. And yeah.
That's amazing. Good luck.
Cool. Thank you.
Please join me in congratulating distinguished alumna Craig Piggott. And let's meet our next recipient.
He was brought up in Kaitaia, and it was a very small community. He was an only child, lovely parents, and I think for him it was about expanding his horizons, and that's been the story of his life, to be really honest.
I first met Peter as a lawyer at Russell McVeigh in the real estate business. Peter very quickly became the developer's lawyer. He was very energetic, enthusiastic, and worked very hard.
The partners asked him to help develop a new office block for the firm in Shortland Street. And from then I think he developed a passion for the bricks and mortar side of property development.
Once he had been in the law for a number of years and reached as much as he wanted to at Russell McVeigh, I think the creative side of him took over. He is an incredibly creative man.
Peter has a restless personality and drive, always looking, how can this be improved? How can that be improved?
Peter wanted to achieve new things. He wanted to build things. He wanted to create things. I think Peter was the perfect person to take on Britomart. As a developer, you were the aggressor, you were the buyer or the seller, and Peter liked that interaction.
Peter operates with a genuine passion for a project that is palpable for anyone he's engaging with. He's extremely visionary, often not quite so patient, but always committed to the best possible solution.
Peter's very passionate about his work, but he's a great family man. That's the centre of what Peter does. And his wife Sue's been a rock through the whole journey.
Family is incredibly important to Pete. He absolutely adores his 5 children. They are everything to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome distinguished alumnus Peter Cooper. The medallion is presented by Apuva Anand in her 4th year studying for a Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of Arts, majoring in psychology, politics and international relations. Apuva is president of the Auckland University Law Students Society for 2025.
There's a word from that video I was hoping we could focus on for a moment, because it's not a word that I think a lot of people necessarily associate with either law or property development. And that's creativity. In what ways does creativity benefit a developer?
Well, I think development is a very organic subject, and most people, if they had to go and build a building, would find it a very, very laboriously boring thing to do. Whereas I think if you actually allow your mind to dream about trying to do something which is different, I guess maybe that's creativity, but I inspire myself by trying to push my own envelope as I go.
How do you do that?
Um, well, I think probably have to go back a little bit because when I went to America as a 17-year-old, I got very inspired by the exciting big country that it was. And so when I went back again with my family 35 years ago, I got very inspired once again with everything I saw going on. And I really, really miss New Zealand so much. I started collecting New Zealand art and amassed a collection of art that I'm very, very passionate about. And so it was really because of going away that I really found my own inspiration in what I'd left behind. And so that New Zealand art got me very inspired about where I'd come from. And I think the more you miss a place, the deeper you learn about it, the stronger your feelings for it grow. And that all led, I guess, to my own creativity and how I express myself.
It's interesting that you raised that concept because I was going to throw a quote at you this evening. It's from T.S. Eliot.
Okay.
It's a little bit washy, so just forgive me that.
Okay.
We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Which, to summarise, is to say the more you travel, the more you learn about your own home.
That's true.
And I wondered, with that in mind, how being away from New Zealand and having the worldly perspective that you had has impacted your Māoritanga.
It has. And my Māoritanga is something I've grown more passionate about with time. And you have your memories of how you were raised as a kid, and I was in a very naturally multicultural environment in Kaitaia where, I mean, you didn't even think that there was two races. You thought you just lived in a community. So all of that stuff was just very natural. And so I've just grown to feel stronger about it, more passionate about it with time. And which is why I'm always a New Zealander for life and love coming back to this country and love what I do here.
Cooper and Company developed the Britomart precinct. And I think all of us here will agree that from an urban development perspective, you absolutely smashed it out of the park. You absolutely nailed it. But can you distill it for us? Apart from Amano's Bakery, what makes Britomart so good?
Well, I think I actually practiced in America and did a lot of different development things along the way in America, and it eventually led me to create a place called South Lake Town Square, which is a 130-acre downtown in a suburban environment outside of what's about 10 minutes from DFW Airport. And so in creating that environment, I learned a lot because at the time, there was about 200 regional malls being developed in America, and what I was doing is now sort of described as a entertainment centre, and I was told that people would never walk that distance to go and shop. Whereas I believe there is a romance in eating, drinking, dining, and being entertained at the same time. And so we did that and found that people would walk. And so regional malls stopped being built and entertainment centres became the new sort of model. So I learned from that, and when I saw what was going on here with the train station being built and the big hole in the ground, I went to council and said, I think this would be an amazing, amazing place to create a new kind of precinct. And at the time, council were thinking they would want to rebuild the car park and sell off the other lots. And so I spent 2 years promoting what I thought would be the right thing to do, and then council put it out as a public tender, which made me very angry, and so I bid to win the tender and develop what we've done there.
Yeah. Well, I think I speak on behalf of all of us when we say we're glad you won.
Thank you.
You have the Landing up
Yes.
north. It's a sustainable coastal sanctuary in the Bay of Islands, and it is an extraordinary place. So one of the first where Māori and Europeans ever interacted. How has developing and conserving the Landing impacted the way you think about New Zealand history?
It's had a huge impact on me. I think probably the biggest impact it has had on me is to respect and be humbled by the power of nature, and to realize that for a place like that to be evolved, developed, so to speak, you really have to understand how powerful nature is, and how inferior we are as meek human beings when you have to confront what nature can deliver. So it's been a learning experience. I mean, it's just an incredible reminder of where we've all come from. It's a remarkable property because of its history. We've registered 43 heritage sites. We've put, of the 1,000 acres, we've put 400 acres into a independent trust, so that will always be protected, those heritage sites. And the more you spend time on a property like that, the more you learn and discover. With the big storms we had up there about 1.5 years ago, some of the foreshore was washed away, and what was opened up was a massive open grave, and we had 14 skeletons were exposed by the erosion of the foreshore. And so we had all of the experts come and examine and really take samples from those bodies, which are now being analysed, and in about 18 months' time we'll know more about them, and a lot more about our own history, in fact. But what we found was that this was really just the beginning of this massive burial ground, and because of the way the bodies were found, we knew it wasn't a place where bodies had been laid, they had been thrown in. And so there's a lot more to discover from that. And so what you do is inherit a massive responsibility, which is an incredible privilege, honour, to treat respectfully and to learn from. So there's much more to follow from all of that, but you realise the responsibilities you have when you take on something like that.
The gravity of that is enormous. It's
massive.
enormous.
It's massive.
Yeah. Well, we are so glad that we've managed to organise this evening at a time when you happen to be home. It's wonderful to have
Jack.
you here. Please join me in congratulating Peter Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much, mate.
And let us meet our next recipient.
Our mum installed a whole lot of values in us, loving kindness and thinking about others first. If you look at what Helen does now, those three values have probably exuded a lot in what she does and how she supports people.
When I met Helen, I was young, I was very vulnerable. I didn't really have a safe place to live. I went to boarding school, and when I would come home in the holidays, Helen's house is where I would return to. It was a safe space to be myself. She's a lovely, kind, extremely generous, can spot bullshit from a mile away, loving woman.
I recognise her as a leader. It's her relationship with people who are on the very edge of our society, and Helen is enabling their voice. She's focused on food insecurity and showing how women in New Zealand are experiencing poverty, homelessness and abuse on a scale that most of us do not know because it's hidden.
Anyone that gives their life to support other people, particularly the most vulnerable, you can't put a medal to that. She doesn't do it for that. She does it because she truly cares about people.
I'm forever grateful for having Helen in my life. I've now served in the military for 17 years. I have 2 children. I have a mortgage, I have a home for my babies to live in. I don't believe that anything that I have now would have been possible if not for the support that Helen had given me as a young teenager.
Please welcome our final awardee for tonight, Distinguished Alumna Helen Robinson. Helen will receive her medallion from Gulliver MacDonald. Gulliver has a Bachelor of Laws Honours and Bachelor of Arts in Politics and International Relations. He was part of the law school's Equal Justice Project and is a 2025 Coupe Leadership Scholar.
Thank you.
So Chris there mentioned your... Take a seat.
Thank you. It's hard to concentrate after that. So yeah.
So Chris talked about your dedication to women in New Zealand who'd perhaps been overlooked in our society. And I wanted to ask about 3 women from 3 different generations this evening. So first of all, when you graduated with your undergraduate degrees, you dedicated your achievement to your grandma Molly. Why was that?
She essentially didn't get an opportunity to go to secondary school, and yet her brothers did. And we're talking a long time ago. She was born in 1917, and she did very well in matriculation. So those who know what that was the test that happened pre going into secondary school. And she told me growing up that I grew up in Wellington and went to St Mary's College, which is where she would have liked to go, that she used to put a hat on and pretend that she was one of the girls who went to school. So the wild injustice, because she was a woman, of being denied that, and then the privilege 2 generations on that I got to go.
It's amazing. The second woman I wanted to ask about is your mum, Monica.
Yes.
So she was 43 years old and mother of 5 kids when your dad suddenly passed. How did her response to that event change the course of your life?
So she's in the audience, which is delightful. If I had a spotlight, I'd be able to show
Kia
her.
ora, Monica.
Yeah, to acknowledge her. One of the conversations that we have been having here as awardees is that while we are here, and I would not want to underplay the impact of any one of the individuals, but we truly are only here because of the people who've loved us and provided all kind of scaffolding, including the university actually, to be here. My mother is an extraordinary woman who is gutsy and brave and loved us and did what she could. And the reality, my younger brother was 4 and my older sister was 15. So that reality and what that meant was incredibly difficult. And yeah, I hope she's proud of us. So, yeah.
I feel cautiously optimistic she is, Helen. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I suppose that an event like that at a really formative time in someone's life just goes to show how tenuous opportunity can be, right? You can think that everything's kind of laid out. Yeah, I'm a sure thing here. And then in a moment, your whole life changes. And I think most of us in this room have probably had opportunities presented to us. It's something to take an opportunity, but it is something else entirely to take an opportunity and then to extend an opportunity to someone else. So the third woman I wanted to ask about is Nahuia, who we just heard from. She said in that video that you gave her love and security, but I wondered, what has she given you?
And along the way, Nahuia and I have spoken both privately and then in small opportunities publicly about each other. And I said to her once, and very proudly will say, that the love story between Nahuia and I will be one of the biggest love stories in my life. She stands on her own mana, and what a privilege it is just to simply be part of her life and now her children's life. So Cadence, her daughter, is here. Again, another extraordinary woman. Just because I'm proud and I get to say it, she's in the army. She's going to be the Kaikaranga at Gallipoli this year.
Oh.
So she serves New Zealand in honouring our dead, and she's done that. So what a privilege it is for me to be part of that.
You have a really difficult job. What do you wish that New Zealanders better understood about privilege and poverty in this country?
Being the Auckland City Missioner, or Manutaki in Te Reo, in the end means that my job is to come to know the contours or the shape of the human heart, and then what that means for us as a collective. We are an extraordinary people, and you have incredible people in front of you tonight showing that. Every day I witness the guts and the courage and the generosity and the compassion of people. And I stand wildly confused at why we are doing to each other what we're doing to each other. Imagine for a moment in New Zealand where every children had what they needed. Imagine for a moment where we had enough homes for everybody. It feels incredibly simple, and I know it to be possible. So much of my job is to be able to look you in the eye and to everyone, and just to actually remind us of our own goodness, and just how extraordinary we are as people, and what good we can do. And in that same moment to also acknowledge that we are often not good to each other. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can be part of a country that really is quite different.
Your brother Jed. Your brother Jed, who was in that video, told us that, quote, she's like a high-performance athlete, which was rich coming from him, given he was, of course, a professional rugby player.
Exactly.
But even though you are dealing with things, in a sense, at a macro level, every person who sets foot in home ground is a person. Every story, every situation is so intimate, is so personal. So how do you connect with people? How do you empathize with them without just being overwhelmed by their experience?
I am overwhelmed. totally and utterly every day. And all that takes is one person and one story. I think it's more a question about not how do I avoid or how do we avoid being overwhelmed, but how do we be brave enough to be there and to be in that relationship and in that moment. Because if I can just be with you and what's going on with you, then somehow in that together we unlock what is possible, and the healing that is needed, certainly the resources that is needed, and the justice that our people who are excluded deserve. I feel an extraordinarily ordinary person because I'm going home most days angry and exhausted, not kind of nice.
I'm not sure I believe that, Helen.
No, I'm really not nice. I'm really not. And so it's more than, again, so if my challenge to us is to listen to the human heart, then I have to be the one who's brave enough to do that as well. So it's more about how do I actually acknowledge those feelings. And I do want to acknowledge at home ground, it's Tapu Atawhai, the Auckland City Mission. We have a staff of 300 people. We have thousands and thousands of volunteers. The last thing I am doing is standing alone. Auckland is incredible to us and a moment in time for me to acknowledge you and to thank you. And then behind Auckland is New Zealand. Home ground, which Jack acknowledged, is an extraordinary building. That meant that we can provide 80 homes to people who were formerly homeless, access to healthcare, access to food, and all the money. It was a $110 million building. New Zealand gave us that money. So we opened that debt-free. So the mission to Tapu Atawhai is actually an example of what we can be and what we can be together. So then it stops being overwhelming because it's all of us.
If you were queen for the day, if we gave you the key to the city, to the country, said, Helen, you can do whatever you want, what are the policy levers you would pull?
Can we just feed our people, please?
I feel like every year, food banks say they are seeing record demand. Every single year we hear, record demand, record number of New Zealanders who are experiencing food insecurity. The same thing when it comes to housing. We hear similar feedback from the mission and from other groups. What does give you cause for hope? Are there things that stop you from feeling like you are constantly swimming against an incredible torrent?
I think it comes back to a little bit of the conversation that we've already had today. It's about who is standing up, who certainly is standing with the mission and the many, many, many good organisations up and down our country, who is listening and who is making concrete actions and choices to ensuring that everybody has what we need in our country. Sometimes it's the small things, so it wouldn't be unusual that we would have a child that would be coming in to give their birthday money to us. You know, that's a pretty cool moment in time just to be part of it. What's going on in that child's heart and then in that child's family, that they're conscious of that and then aware. That speaks to a whānau that's listening and caring and trying. And I don't have a day in my life where someone is not approaching me saying, how can we help? Like that heartbeat of who we are is extraordinary. I would be lying if I didn't say it can feel hopeless. And I meant what I said before when I talked about being angry, and partly the gift of education. I know. I don't know everything, but I know. And I know the rubbish, and I know when what we're being taught is rubbish or told. And so there is a part of me that just says, just give me the opportunity and I will say that. And this is one of those moments in time.
thank you for being here, but thank you so much for the work you do. Please join me in congratulating Helen Robinson.
Thank you. Here we go. Bye. Well done.
We are approaching the end of our evening here together, but while we have all of our distinguished alumni on stage, I'm going to throw a couple of quick questions at all of them to answer. You get the same question, so no cheating by taking someone else's answer here. Stephen, I'm going to start with you and we can make our way down the line. Okay. Give us a vision of a different life, a fantasy. Is there another subject you might have studied, another career you might have pursued, and why?
Yeah, for me, when I see the work that's done in medicine, you know, shout out to my mother, Bev. She's 86 years old. She's had type 1 diabetes since she was 5, and I've seen the miracle of medicine and helping a poor girl live a long life. They told her that she would not get to see adulthood because it was 1938 and they harvested the insulin from cows' pancreas. So if I had another chance, I probably would do what my friend Jean-Paul does and care for people. I'm really excited about how smart things can happen, and I've seen it with my mother. It's all about my mother with me. So Bev, thanks. Yeah, I would have been a doctor, but I'm not that bright.
Peter, how about you?
Sorry, what's the question again?
Is there another life you would have lived? Something you would have studied or a career you might have pursued?
No.
Fair enough.
I'm still excited about what I do.
Helen?
I think I had a childhood fantasy of being a ballet dancer.
Oh.
But beyond that, slightly more into an adult fantasy, I'd love to be an astronaut and go to space.
Right.
Be cool.
Just a modest.
Yeah. Small wee one. Yeah.
Craig?
Yeah, I love what I do, but I initially wanted to be a mechanic, and my parents were like, you should go to university, and that's why I did mechanical engineering. So I guess, roll of the dice again. Maybe I would have been a farmer or a mechanic, but I feel very lucky to do what I do, and I love being in tech and engineering. So
Very good. Amelia?
Well, you said I got to be a fantasy, so I think for me it would have been doing something in the arts, because I think that's something that generates hope and binds and brings people together. So I think that would have been my alternate reality. Love what I do, but I think that would have been my passion.
Anything specific, dare we ask? Is there a-
Look, so I took a sideline of throwing pots, but I think sculpture and carving would be something just, really engages people's hearts, engages that natural world. So to me, that would have been something in there.
Very good. Last question. Think back to your time at university. Craig, I know it's not that long for you. Although it sounds like you weren't there. But think back to you at university, and is there a little pearl of wisdom, a piece of advice you would give you at that time, or a student who's at Waipapa Taumata Road today, that you think might help them on their journey?
Oh, look, I have the privilege here because I have two people at varsity and one on their way. And the thing I would have wished I told myself is you're going to work for a very, very long time. So enjoy university, enjoy learning, enjoy the opportunity of exploring, testing, doing breakthrough, doing startups. So take some experimentation time and enjoy that at university. I think that would be my big message to my earlier self.
Yeah. Great.
For me, my friend group from school changed massively to university, and that had such a big impact on my life. So maybe make good friends. But probably the main one would
make good friends as opposed to ditch your friends.
Just you're such a product of the people that you spend time with, and I still believe that today for sure. It's how we think about hiring a halter. Is who are the people you want to spend a huge amount of your life with. So, but otherwise, maybe I feel like I just said yes to everything at uni. It was just yep, I'll do that. Maybe that's how you end up at Rocket Lab, started a company and trying to finish your 4th year. Probably make good friends.
Helen?
University is often such an intense time, I think, particularly if you're younger. There is a real sense for me that just says, you're okay. Hang in there. Yeah.
Peter?
I probably would have taken it more seriously, on looking back.
It worked out okay, Peter.
It worked out, it worked out. So it was fine. But, I didn't even go and get my honours degree at the end of the day because I felt I didn't have time to pick it up. So I should have taken it more seriously.
Yeah. Stephen?
Much the same. I think I should have spent less time in the cafe by the Maidman Theatre smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee and changing the world, and actually do a bit of study would have helped things along a bit more. And if I had applied myself a little bit more, I think I would have got there, particularly with maths.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening and for taking our questions. I'm going to stand over here and I'm going to ask all of you to stand up after me and slowly make your way up to this line that we practiced earlier. Remember this?
Oh, that's right.
Very good. So please, won't you join me once again in celebrating and congratulating Amelia Lindsay, Toa Leo Stephen Stalin, Craig Piggott, Peter Cooper and Helen Robinson, the University of Auckland's 2025 Distinguished Alumni. All right, you can go and relax. Come on, guys. Come and make your way over here. Very good. Take your bits and pieces. Very good. Thank you, sir. That is almost us for this evening. So, a couple of quick thanks. First of all, I want to thank the University of Auckland, Waipapa Taumata Road, for having me here this evening. I don't think you need a newsman to tell you there is a lot of disorder, a lot of uncertainty, animosity in the world right now. Perhaps one of the few arrows in our quiver in these turbulent times is the capacity to identify and to properly celebrate excellence in our midst. It's just so tempting in this kind of busy world to get caught up with things and think, oh, yeah, I know they've achieved a lot. I know this person's done amazing things, but, we'll get time to acknowledge that. This is one of those rare moments, and I think given the state of the world at the moment, it is all the more valuable that we hold on to these kind of moments and we embrace them. So you have played a big part in that this evening. Thank you so much for being here and celebrating our distinguished alumni. In a couple of minutes, we are going to go downstairs. We will meet for drinks and refreshments. But to close out things this evening, we have what's going to be an extraordinary musical performance. They've rolled in the Steinway at a moment's notice. It's been prepared for this evening. So performing the Flower Duet, please welcome sopranos Te Ohorere Williams and Antonia Brightwell and accompanist Juan Kim.